Welcome to the Deuce Cast Extra. We are excited to be talking about episode 8 of The Bad Batch called Reunion and episode 2 of Loki called The Variant, which I love that. Thank you for joining us this evening. Got some people already in the live chat, a lot of people already in the live chat. Wow. So appreciate you guys joining us. Real quick, before I introduce those that are with us, I want to give a huge shout out to Aussie Nate for the Deucecast Extra logo that you see up there in the right-hand corner for me. I don't know what it looks like on YouTube. But I think that's accurate. So I appreciate Aussie Nate. And we've already got somebody that notices Dr. Earl is not here this evening. But Rhett in his special way. And Ryfin, as always, thanks for being tried and true and joining us each week. Dr. Earl feels like he's ultimately the most important person, obviously, on this, and for 2 weeks in a row, he's going to drop out on us. I mean, I couldn't believe that. So, luckily, we have, I'm going to say, at least more knowledgeable on the Star Wars side. We've got Nick Milkey from Podcast of the Wills joining us again, and he committed to trying to join us again next week as well. Nick, thanks so much for joining, man.
Hey, I'm glad I finished my shift at Rock's Cart just in time to be here. So it worked out, and I'm glad to have a chance to talk about these shows.
Yeah. This is an exciting time on Deucecast Extra because we're talking about 2 shows in one night. Now, last week, to be honest, we joked around because we were so excited about Loki that we were only going to talk about Bad Batch for like 10 seconds and move on. We talked about it a little bit longer to that. Now, this episode 8, though, a lot happened. I mean, this was a big episode, I think, not only for this series, but for Star Wars in general, because a major character makes his return that we'll get to, which I absolutely loved. But we had a bunch of great things happen. First of all, Ryfin, what are your thoughts of the episode in general?
Well, I got complacent before this episode came out. You know, every Friday, every morning I get up and sometimes I'll check Twitter for news. And this Friday I open up Twitter and there's a GIF of Cad Bane immediately on my timeline. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. Because I know immediately, and it says at the top, oh, it's great to see him back in the episode. And I was like, oh, no. I can deal with a spoiler here or there. I really enjoyed the episode. It was great to see Crosshair back fighting the crew. That's going to be going on for, I guess, the rest of the show until there's some sort of resolution between that. But it was great to have Cad Bane back as well. Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. And
his robot named after a dog. I guess it's Todo, not Toto, but close enough.
and voiced by Seth Green, no less.
I know, right? Yeah. Seth Green.
Jacob says maybe his chip got burned out. I was thinking the same thing, but then he got up and immediately was like, let's go after them or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And Nick, I've got to hear your thoughts on the episode, being Mr. Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to get another episode where they're still on Braca, which is, of course, something that we got originally from Jedi Fallen Order. Seeing them in that graveyard, you see the scrappers, things that we get in the beginning of that game. I'll tell you, obviously the Bane part is very exciting. I know we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I really was excited about those first early moments when we were back on Camino and we get some more of Nala Se and Lama Su. And again, I've had these theories. Of course, they've had to change a little bit along the way, but we were set up early on. In fact, I think I was on with you guys the first episode. Yeah. And there was so much emphasis on, the Kaminoans saying, everything is very intentional. They have a plan. Mm-hmm. It's separate from the Empire. Like, they're out to protect their asset. They're out to protect their clones. And so we get that set up, and that's still continuing. And so what we get is the conversations where, she says, Nala Se says, the Empire's action on Braca poses a threat to our contingency plans. They have a plan. It's independent of the Empire. And the fact, because Hunter comes in and says, hey, there's somebody spotted, and Rampart is there. And Rampart is saying, well, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And he says, no, you don't understand. It's Clone Force 99. And he says, well, if you find him, kill him, eliminate him. Like, he sends him out. Let's get this over with. But the Kaminoans aren't playing that game. Like, they've got something else at hand. They talk about, another bounty hunter. He says, as long as one of these bounty hunters delivers the young clone intact, that's our only concern. So they're after Omega. That's their deal. Get Omega back.
Yep.
So I love the intrigue of that. That's, to me, that's a big driving point, because ultimately what we got last week is we sealed up, for the most part, the whole chip drama. Rex shows up, they get the chips out.
And I'm glad.
And so I am too, but it ended a lot sooner than I thought it was going to. Like, I thought we would carry that farther. And the other thing that I realized watching this episode on Friday morning is, at this point, we've seen everything that was in the trailer, which is a very recent Disney kind of thing to do. Rex coming over the horizon, which was last week, like all that stuff that we got in the whole trailer for Bad Batch, we've seen it all. So now we're kind of out into wild space, free space. Where are we going now? The Bane thing adds a wrinkle. There's the intrigue of what are the Kaminoans going to do? Are we still headed to some sort of, I guess, to bring it back, my chaotic neutral theory about the Kaminoans and what are they going to do? So I really like that. And I really liked how it sets up, these next 8 episodes could go a lot of different places. And it's exciting. It really is, from a storytelling standpoint. I'm excited to not really have an idea where we're going.
And just to make reference to Brian's comment here, I mean, about the voice acting and the direction. I mean, these shows just look so great. I mean, and it's a lot of the same team that's been there, from the beginning. But they've obviously honed their skills. Like Joel Aaron is a guy that I have followed quite a bit, and I briefly met him at one of the celebrations. He's just super talented with the lighting and the effects, and just the different elements that they introduce. Like, we got, anytime that we get Camino, it looks gorgeous. I mean, just amazing what they can do with animation. And I even noticed a lot of things that I have not noticed in an animated show before. A lot of foreground elements with characters
and
behind.
Lighting stuff. Lighting in this show has been phenomenal.
Really, really great.
They did
a couple weeks. Yeah, go ahead. A couple weeks ago, that chase through the market when they're on Ord Mantell, and like one of them runs through the smoke, like it was just bursting through smoke and the smoke curling and whatever. But like, it was so visually pleasing. And you get that continuing through all these episodes. And this week, when they're in that engine and that engine's getting ready to fire up, like, I know it's something we don't have a real world connection to some kind of big engine like that, but it was still just like hypnotic and satisfying, as my kids like to say. It's so satisfying.
Wait a minute. I've got to address something here, because I was under the impression that Rhett didn't watch cartoons.
I just said they did a good job of using pull focus on a shot.
Yes.
That's probably what he was playing off of.
Okay, so he didn't actually watch it, because this leads me to believe that he actually watched the episode. But,
unless he did, I don't know.
Unless he did, I would be very, very, there's a lot. Thanks for coming in the chat, guys. We always have a lot of fun with it. I mean, one of the things that I love about this particular, and we're jumping around to different things that happened, obviously, but Ryfin, to me, I love the fact that we're going to get like a Bond villain-esque Crosshair, because he's all scarred up now. And so now he really gets to go full Bond, and I love that fact. I think he's going to end up being a great villain.
Yeah, I make it no secret, he was my least favorite of the Bad Batch characters in season 7 of the Clone Wars. So I wouldn't be mad with him forever being a villain, but I feel like they're gonna try to resolve his arc with the chip at some point.
Well, and that's the Star Wars thing to do, right? I mean, everybody gets redemption at some point. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you commit patricide. I mean, you can do like the worst thing in the world and still get redemption in Star Wars, which I like. I like that. That's a good thing.
I think Ryfin said this a minute ago, or maybe he said it before he came on the air, but when that engine blasts and Crosshair gets kind of knocked into the, the ship or whatever it is that he's up against, and he kind of hits his head and he's out for a minute. I had that kind of reverse Wrecker moment where I thought, is this going to be the thing that like shakes his ship loose? Yeah. And he's going to be, it's like in Avengers when Nat punches Hawkeye in the head and clears him of the Loki fog. Like, was that going to be what happened?
Right.
But then he popped right back up and he was like, you still got to go get him. And so we aren't there yet with him, but the potential for the redemption absolutely still exists. And it's going to have to be a part of the kind of carrying drama that we get in the back half of the show.
Yeah. And speaking of drama, Ryfin, they did the thing that they did in Rise of Skywalker, where you think a character is going to be dead, but he's not really dead, because all this and I'm talking about with Hunter, right? I mean, that was a direct shot.
I didn't really understand how he didn't die.
It's got something to do with the type
chest
of
plating
armor.
Really good.
It's the armor.
Kevlar chest plating, like Star Wars Kevlar chest plating.
It's not the plasticky kind that
Durasteel. Is that what they call it in Star Wars? I don't know.
It's not the Durasteel plastic armor that Chirrut can just hit with a stick and it shatters into pieces. Or the armor can hit with a wrench. It's the kind that you can get shot, glancing, dual like blast, whatever. And I had not a thought about the armor, but a thing I noticed.
That's a good point. Main character armor is better than extras armor. That's
right.
Accurate.
It's like red shirts, it's got a very red shirt kind of vibe to it. But I thought that about the armor because and part of it again is the lighting effects. When they were on Kamino and Hunter's walking with that group of guys and he goes to talk to the Kaminoans, those other guys with him all have that more like blackened gray Clone Force 99 looking armor. And so I had a moment where I thought, we have an armor shift, we have an aesthetic choice, because we know we're still heading towards classic white stormtroopers. But then when those 3 ships land on Braca and they all come out and he's got the different groups and he tells the one group, go to their ship and, secure it and wait there. As they turned, it was clear that was white armor, because when you get the shot of all them laying on the ground, there's white. So there's a little bit of like the fancy, the ones that Crosshair was kind of working with and training in those first 1 or 2 episodes, they may have some other specialty armor or whatever, but we do get something special with Hunter that allows him to, of course, hang in. And I think they say as he's coming to, and you hear the voice in the background, one of them says something like, he was shot through his armor. Like that one sentence fixes the situation that he doesn't have to be dead.
Well, I just figured the armor was made of vibranium or something. I didn't know if we were crossing over to different adamantium, unobtainium. I mean, they're all Disney properties now. So, I mean,
it's Beskar, baby. It's got to be Beskar.
Exactly.
Or Beskar. Exactly. It's probably Beskar. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
It's the unobtainium of every other universe.
Right. Exactly. A couple other interesting things. I mean, I love the fact, and I'm obviously not the first to say this, because it seems like they're showing this in at least a little bit in every episode, that Omega is not perfect. She doesn't immediately pick up on things.
Bomb at the beginning of the episode.
Right, where she's trying to learn how to put a bomb back together or make a bomb or whatever she was
totally
doing.
Fails.
Totally fails.
Wrecker
and I like that.
Out.
I mean, to be fair, I like that they're doing that, because there's a tendency to think that a lot of the characters in Star Wars are unfailable and they can instantly do whatever. And I'm really glad, especially that happened a little bit in Rebels, like with Sabine a little bit. I mean, and there's some that would say Rey is that way. I don't necessarily feel that way about that character, but I mean, there's some that would certainly say that. So it's good to see Omega, and I'm totally convinced now that she has no Force abilities. And I'm hoping that they don't go there, in all honesty. I'm hoping that they keep away from having a clone, unless there's a good explanation. I mean, if there's a good explanation, then sure, give it to us. But there better be a really good explanation,
Sure.
She's the first clone of Palpatine. There you go.
Well, okay, but
she's got the hair for it. I mean,
she does have the hair for it.
Well, and I agree with your point about her not being good at everything and having those moments, because the first couple of scenes, couple of big things we get with her is her picking up that blaster on the landing dock and taking the guys out when they're escaping, that kind of stuff. But then she did struggle once she got the bow. But I did actually, one of my notes for this episode is she's getting better with the bow, because when they're in that firefight, she takes out a couple of stormtroopers, and
which I believe that, though, because we've had 3
because
episodes.
she's working with Wrecker, she's working with the other Bad Batch guys to, like, you know, and I like that she's an integrated part of the crew. Like, she's doing bomb training with Wrecker, and then at some point Tech calls her and says, "Hey, I need you up here. I need you to come upload the whatever it is, crawl under the desk."
Like the main
and
is what he said.
Yeah, and I love the tiny moment. We talked about this, or it was talked about in the episode when they go to see Cut and Sue. I think it was the second episode. The very parent moment. She's a kid. She runs out past the fence line, all that stuff. There was a teeny tiny moment when she's with Wrecker and she gets the call from Tech to come up and help him. And as she's running down the way, Hunter and Echo are pushing the cart and the weapons or whatever. And as she's skipping along the way, she just waves to him and keeps going. And it was such a kid moment of just like, "Hey, I'm on my way." And she just keeps going. And it's in the background, you know, away from main focus. But the tiny thoughts and details that go into shows like this just make me happy when they do stuff like that.
Yeah. And so Roth asks a good question. This is what we, as a viewer, understand about clones, that they do have rapid aging. Now, that's Omega
but Boba didn't.
Yeah, which is what he says in the
that was Django's.
Yeah, that was right. But so, I mean, maybe she does, maybe we don't know yet, really. I think that she probably will have some of that, but I mean, that's an unknown at this point. I mean, it could go either way.
Left open on purpose right now. A lot of threads left open.
Oh, okay. And he clarifies that he meant, is it removed?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the potential is that she doesn't have the rapid aging, because I think she is the Kaminoan special project. She's the special, you know, whatever. Okay. And they're willing to take their time with her for whatever other special ingredients, traits, whatever it is that she has. I think the long game is their deal with her.
And I think she would have been showing some signs of at least some aging at this point, because there's definitely been some off-screen things that have happened. Plenty of time has passed by now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess plenty of time. I don't know exactly how quick clones age. I mean, I don't think it's
fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think it's like what
they don't become an adult in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's like the reverse Curious Case of Benjamin Button here. I mean,
maybe
I don't
a little
know.
bit of growth or something, you know.
Yeah,
a little noticeable.
I mean, I think that she learns quickly, but at the same time, you know, it takes practice for her. But she is learning quickly, and she's very interested in different aspects. I mean, I think it was Brian that kind of made a joke about this, that she's learning things from all aspects of the Scooby Gang. I mean, yeah, and that's kind of accurate, because she always makes sure to be around. You know, she was around Tech this episode when he was working on the starship or whatever. And so she's trying to learn different aspects of things.
Well, and Brian has another comment down here that says, "What if they put all the Clone Force 99 traits into one clone?" And that was one of my early Omega theories as well, is that she was a little bit of the best of all of those, and that's why she's the Omega, the end. You know, she had the Hunter, you know, the instinct. She had the crosshair with the blaster in that first episode. You know, there were little bits of the things that she did that kind of indicated, you know, she was the perfect version of, if you go back to the movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito got all the good stuff, or Arnold Schwarzenegger got all the good stuff, and Danny DeVito was the leftover.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Some aspect of that, maybe.
Yeah, no doubt. So, you know, the Kaminoans obviously have some type of contingency plan that they're going to have to enact. I mean, I think they even reference that in this episode and even say those words. Yeah. I think, you know, Lama Su mentioned something to Nala Se, I mean, about, hey, we're going to have to do our contingency plan here. You know, he doesn't feel like things with Rampart are going well, basically, or the Empire in general, really. So there's got to be some type of contingency plan coming before the end of this season. I'm still convinced that this is a one and done thing. I don't think we're getting multiple seasons of this show.
I don't know that I think we're getting multiple seasons either.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks out there in different shows and whatnot speculate this could be a 2 to 3 season show, but I don't know. I don't know. Okay, Rhett, I see what you're saying here, buddy.
That's right. Well, and if we can make Rhett's pain a little bit more, you're talking about contingency plans and the Kaminoans.
Yes,
one of the things that we got, we get Rampart back also at the beginning of this episode when he's talking to them. And it was very intentionally mentioned in the first or second episode, Project War Mantle. And I think a part of that is the transition from clones to conscripted stormtroopers and what is that going to look like. And I think that still has the potential to be something else that shows up that, Chekhov's War Mantle, it was planted in the beginning of this, and we're going to get some more of it, coming up somewhere down the line.
They're going to fire it in the third act.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. Ryfin, before we move on to Loki, any final thoughts on this particular episode?
It was fun. I'm interested to see, again, we started to have some really good episodes in it, probably 4 in a row now.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if there's going to be another dip for me in this show. And I feel like there probably will be with 8 episodes left. But yeah, I'm
not.
So
I mean,
not,
they could really bring it this last half of the season.
Maybe not. I'm just always afraid.
I guarantee you there's not going to be a Shark Man in this series. So that was... Yeah. Oh yeah. What was it? Season 5 or 6 of the Clone Wars. There was the Shark people.
Yeah.
I don't remember what season. Yeah, beginning of one of the seasons. I can't remember.
Season 5. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, season 5. So yeah, we're not hopefully going to get to see any more Shark people. Nick, what about you? Any final thoughts on this one before we move to Loki?
I think the biggest closing thought is we danced around it at the very beginning, but we get Cad Bane back.
Yeah, exactly.
We get Corey Burton as Cad Bane with the voice. And,
so great.
It's teased from in the beginning when the Kaminoans are having that conversation and they're saying, we just have to get, and she says something about another one of these bounty hunters. And so, of course, we're teased with it, but we don't know what it's going to be. Of course, we all get a little bit Boba fever because, one of those prevailing theories is are Boba and Omega some sort of like step sibling related, connected, whatever, which may still not be out of the picture. I would not at all be surprised if we get younger Boba, voiced by Daniel Logan, show up in here. And the connection and what, of course, everybody brought up, in the last few days is that animatic scene that was released at Celebration a couple years ago of Boba and Cad Bane facing off. Boba gets the ding in the helmet. That is a younger Boba. I rewatched that today, and they kind of refer to him because you've got Bosk and you've got Embo also in that scene, and they kind of, young one, young whatever they, so he's fumbling Boba facing off against a more seasoned Bane. There could still be a chance, to bring something like that into it. At this point, they'd all be on the side of the Kaminoans, so you don't know, how they could make that work. But I wouldn't be surprised if they fully realized that scene in some way before this was over with. But yeah, we get,
I would love it.
Cad Bane back, and I was so excited to see him. Just everything about it was satisfying. It was happy. It was fun. The toothpick, the hat. It was just, it was a great
theme, the new theme.
The theme,
I don't think he had that theme in Clone Wars. So this was a new, very Inicio Morricone scene.
Very Morricone, very Western.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, that's basically what the character is a cowboy. They even had the gunfight at the OK Corral type situation that, drawing and
so that's my closing thought is just that Cad Bane being back and getting that as a cameo was fantastic.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I agree with both of y'all's closing thoughts. The one thing that was very frustrating to me, and I know they did it intentionally, is they did not give us a Wilhelm scream when the stormtrooper.
We got the new scream.
I hope that's not the new scream because that was pathetic. I did not like that scream.
There is an article. I don't know if it's an article or if it's an interview that I heard somewhere where they have transitioned intentionally away from the Wilhelm scream, and there's a new one that they're using, and there's roots on where that one comes from, like it's Filoni or Lucas or somebody that did one as a joke that they're like, we're gonna goose that up and make that be the new Star Wars scream. But yeah, when Wrecker chunks those troopers out of there, one of them definitely does the new scream.
Yeah, and it's got to be let's see, Matt. What's his last name?
Matt Wood.
Yeah, it's got to be Matt Wood. I mean, he's the one that does all the sounds for Lucasfilm now, so he's probably came up with that. But man, I miss the Wilhelm scream.
They should have just taken the Emperor scream from the end of Return of the Jedi. They tried to add it at the end of Episode 5 and then removed it. So why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and as a transition out of this to Loki, if I can answer Brian's question from just a minute ago, the answer is yes. This is a Burger King Empire Strikes Back Lando glass that I'm drinking out of. I actually snagged this at my local comic book shop this weekend for $10, so it was a nice addition to the collection.
It must be nice to live in a city that has a local comic book shop.
Well, we have a couple, and honest to God, this is the first time I've been to it in my entire life, so I'll be going back. But as a not generally comic books guy, it's not something that's normally on my radar. But my family was out of town this weekend, and I had all my time to myself, and it's a mile from my house, so why not?
What's up with you people and your families going out of town? I need my family to go out of town every weekend. No, but and to be fair to Birmingham, there is a couple of local comic book shops, but they're not.
But no Kingdom Comics.
There's no Kingdom Comics, and that's all I want, and it's gone now. No, anyways, let's transition over to Loki and talk about episode 2, the variant, and man, what an episode it was. We we get the beginning of the episode where Loki is learning the trade.
Yeah.
And I love that scene. I mean, it's hilarious to see Loki sitting in a cubicle learning the trade.
I like it because they also let some time pass in between the ending of the last episode
and the
beginning of this episode. They didn't make us go, okay, Loki, learn how to be a detective with our agency, and here's what you have to do, and here's all the stuff we have to do. They kind of exposition dumped us a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but I liked how they did it. It was fine with me. Totally.
And
stuff was good.
The Miss Minutes
stuff him on how to do stuff, and it felt natural to me.
Mm-hmm. It did. Yeah, and he's even asking if she's real or alive or whatever, and she's like,
kind of like a bit of both.
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, that was a great opening sequence. But before that, I guess we get the Renaissance Fair stuff from 1985, right? That was right before they showed that. Because
maybe the original killings.
Yeah, so they show the Renaissance Fair 1985.
Hero plays or whatever.
Yeah, I need a hero plays. And the Minutemen are going in to try and stop this variant that's wreaking havoc all over the sacred timeline, as it were. But and I think that was interesting. I was, being a movie guy, I immediately recognized Sasha Lane. I just pay attention to stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I didn't know she was in this series at all. I had not heard that rumor that she was in this series. She's from a movie called American Honey that Shia LaBeouf was in. And then she was in a series that was on Amazon Prime that had John Cusack in it, a sci-fi series. But yeah, I recognized her.
She's in Hellboy 2019.
Yes, she's in Hellboy. Yeah. And so to me, it's weird for them to have a recognizable actress to at least some, kind of not be that important right now, at least. I mean, we're not sure. And why did the variant take her, but we don't see the variant take anyone else? That was an interesting thing.
I think the variant wanted to have kind of a hostage there to distract from what was happening, because she was so broken by the point that they got to her that it really
she was messed up.
It really delayed their search for the variant. And allowed the variant to be able to destroy the timeline as we see at the end of the episode, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, at some point in the episode, the variant does say, "Oh, for the most part, the people that I possess come back alive."
Yeah. Do they recover? Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part. I mean, that's very reassuring, right? And it's sort of like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Fallen before. I think it's called Fallen with Denzel. And it's sort of like the same thing where a person touches someone and it transfers to them. It's very much like that conceit where you're transferring power from person to person. So this particular character that we're not supposed to know who it is yet, but we kind of do because obviously it's all over the internet. But Ryfin, what did you think about Loki feeling good about being part of the team when he gets his jacket?
I really like all the scenes in the TVA. It's a very weird place, very bureaucratic, kind of almost 60s, 70s bureaucratic looking place. There's a lot of fun moments. He puts on the jacket, but he's still trying. He's a part of the team, but he's still trying to mess with these people.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
And, he's trying to get his knives, and the security guard takes it away. And he's sort of lying about certain things, although he does reveal to them that, how his powers actually work at one point. They don't know how his, I guess, specific variant powers work, because all his variants have different, it looks like all his variants use different powers. They were all kind of weird looking. It was like a blue looking Loki at one point. There was one that was kind of big and hulked out. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Especially since Owen Wilson seems to be kind of like an expert. His character Mobius seems to be kind of
on Loki. Yeah.
He didn't, either he was playing coy or he didn't really know all of his powers.
I mean, can you really know all of Loki's powers? I don't know.
Well, and that's the mischief.
Yeah, that's the god of mischief.
Yeah.
So, Nick, from the standpoint of Mobius convincing, what's her name? Ravonna, Ravonna, to let him take Loki on this mission or whatever. We get the sense that they've got quite a long relationship. Correct. He's like, I hope it's a double. Obviously, it's always a double. He's just saying that. He always gets the double, whatever he was drinking. And the rings on the table.
The rings on the table.
Yeah, so we really get the sense that they have had this long relationship. But I think it was the first episode that, Mobius says time passes differently.
Yes.
In the TVA. So who knows? Yes, Rensley. I knew Fetmatic was out there somewhere to help me remember names, because that's what I rely Fetmatic. I'm glad you're here, Fetmatic.
I'm sorry,
thank you.
Brian just sent me on a quest to find the actual TVA Twitter account. I didn't know what he was talking about.
I'm sure that they're playing up. I'm sure they're definitely playing up this series. So, Nick, anyways, what are your thoughts on how that conversation went? It was interesting, wasn't it?
It was definitely interesting, and there was a lot of, the good, Owen Wilson at his best is in a one-on-one interplay.
Yes.
And so, like, the scenes with him and Loki walking down a hallway talking about, it looks this way, the little comments and the come on, man. And classic Owen Wilson is in this, which is what I'm here for and what I love. And it's no different in his conversations with her. Yeah. The thing about the rings, those were here from last time. I didn't use a coaster. And he makes the comment about, which other agents do you have on the side? Like, there's all the little play, all the little, the triangulation.
Really, kind of, to me, that was also kind of a really dark moment. I feel like Renslayer's hiding a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
she's got another person that's reporting to her. And we don't know who that is.
And it almost has that, Ryfin, you said, just, I love the TVA. I love the feel of it. Like, and even in this, Loki asked the question, I think it's when they're in Pompeii, he says, I'm from the future. And then he looks at him, he's like, am I from the future? Are we from the future? Is that what we're doing?
It's all unknown.
But and of course, when they get to later in the episode and they're looking at disasters from 2050, but I love the aesthetic of the TVA, because you have these like 50s era, like TVs and computers with like the big bulbous, whatever. And when he's, the thing you talked about, Michael, with, him in a cubicle and he's having the back and forth with Miss Minutes.
Yeah.
Your version of, was it C20, the agent that you said, that actress that was in Hellboy and all that other stuff. Yeah. For me, Miss Minutes was the voice in my head that I'm going, I know her. I know who that is. Why do I know who that is?
Yeah.
And I figured it out. And it's because I have 4 daughters and she's done My Little Pony.
Right.
And she's Twilight Sparkle in My Little Pony. And I was like,
of course
that's where I've heard that voice.
She's done a lot of stuff too, yeah.
But again, so the aesthetic of the TVA, the whole, like he even says when he comes into our office, does this office keep getting cooler every time I come in here? Because you've got the statues and the artifacts and all the different, that kind of stuff. Of course, shout out to the TVA being the kind of local to us Marriott Marquis in Atlanta for some of that, the big, the lobby with the big whatever. So yeah, I really did love that conversation, and I love that it sets up Mobius kind of being in it for, he's kind of genuinely interested in Loki, and he's genuinely kind of like, I believe in this guy, because that's their whole conversation. Are you sure you trust him? Are you sure believe in him? And, but she's got another hand that may or may not be being played. And so it just, to me, again, the one-on-one Owen Wilson conversations are just a delight. Like, I'm totally here for that.
Yeah, I mean, and she's certainly keeping him on a bit of a leash, I think, but also she trusts him. I mean, again, we don't know how long they have been working together in this TVA type situation, fixing these Nexus issues, and, who knows? I mean, that's an unknown thing, but they certainly want the audience to feel like this has been, a relationship that they've had for a while, because he's even jealous about some of the artifacts that she has on the shelf. Like, where'd you get that one? I didn't bring you that one. And that's when he leads to,
couldn't I put that roller skate in my cubicle?
Yeah, exactly. And one thing, I mean, just to mention it, and Easter eggs are fun for some people. I'm okay with them, but the one that I thought was interesting was the pen that she uses to sign the paperwork in the office has Franklin
looks at.
Yeah, that he looks at has Franklin D. Roosevelt High School, which if you look up, what's the deal with Franklin D. Roosevelt as far as Marvel is concerned, he was a major character plot point in season 7 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which that's frustrating and interesting at the same time. Frustrating in the sense that I'm glad I watched that whole show, but I didn't want that to necessarily be a part of my MCU, because there's crazy stuff that happens in that series that doesn't feel Marvel or MCU.
I don't think FDR would be handing out FDR high school pins.
Right.
So I feel like
just having his name. Yeah, just having his name.
Yeah.
Or the real world connection, which I discovered upon research, is that he founded the real TVA. So that could be a shout out to, hey, we're calling it, TVA. So who knows? I mean, that would be cool either way, whatever the Easter egg is. But I feel as if all this time stuff also has Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. implications, because they were playing with time a lot in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. For those that suffered through, I know Fetmatic had to have suffered through it, and Dr. Earl suffered through that series in its ups and downs. It had some good ups, though. It wasn't all bad. There was just some down stuff. You couldn't get through it. Yeah, no. I mean, hey, to be fair, I almost didn't. They kept renewing it, and I couldn't believe it. Is crazy. So, anyways, I just thought that was a neat little Easter egg.
Earlier, Nick mentions the fact that we don't really know what time period this is. We do get an interesting further bit of information about maybe, the TVA takes place outside of time and space. Right. But to the point of which the timeline has been created is not, they haven't gotten to the end of time yet. They kind of discussed that it's still being worked on.
Yeah.
It's still being created to this day.
Yeah.
So, we do know that they only know up to a certain point that it's an established part of the sacred timeline. We don't know what that point is, but we know that there is a finite point.
Well, I mean, we know at least that they know up to, what was it, 2050, right? I mean...
Yeah. Haven Hills, Alabama.
Haven Hills, Alabama. Gotta love it. And a couple of us are in Alabama.
That is a fantastic part of the show is because Loki is starting to show his worth. After he kind of tricks them, they come back and start doing the detective work of trying to figure out where Loki may be, and Loki figures out that he would go in a disaster because a disaster wouldn't affect the timeline. No matter what he did, those people were always going to die. So whatever he did to them, it didn't matter. I love that aspect. And Loki figures it out. He's not dumb. Our variant may not be better than the other variant, but he's not dumb.
But, and there was talking about Easter eggs, there was a fun moment when they're doing that research and he's starting to put it together. And one of the pieces of paper he looks at is the one about Asgard and Ragnarok.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love, if you look at that, it says, 9,213, like it says how many people died, what happened, and for something that we've seen in a Marvel movie with Ragnarok itself and all that, it was just a fun, and again, kind of like in the first episode when he's watching his death at the hands of Thanos, it's another one of those Loki sobering moments of oh, this thing really happened.
Yeah.
This is, it just is confirmed, secondary confirmation for him. And I thought that was a neat approach.
You could see that hurts Loki too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, although he sloughs it off pretty quick. I mean,
sure,
but that's what Loki does.
Yeah. I mean, because Mobius asks him, "Oh, sorry for that tragedy," and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's too sad. It's sad or whatever he says." I mean, because he's excited that he found
he figured out the theory at that.
Yeah, he figured out the theory that there was no time variant event within that disaster, basically, which leads them to Pompeii. Basically, to test the theory.
He starts speaking in Latin.
He starts speaking. Well, I thought it was Italian.
Was it?
I thought it was Italian as well.
I think it was Italian. Yeah, because Pompeii, Italy. It felt Italian. It didn't feel Latin, but I don't. That's neither here nor there.
I don't speak either one of those, so it could.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, it could have been Pig Latin for all I know, but yeah. I mean, and these two are working well together. But I think Mobius is intelligent enough to not trust him all the way, which kind of ends up happening towards the end of this episode. And man, they are moving at a quick pace in this show, which I mean, with only 6 episodes, they kind of need to. But
yeah, at the end of the episode, I wouldn't really say he trusted Loki too much. I think Loki. I guess we'll get to that when we get to it. But I think
he trusted him too much, because what you get in that scene as Loki chases her through that door and it closes,
I think Loki
Mobius runs up.
Okay.
And he's disappointed.
He's back.
Look.
Fact check Rhett on the spot.
I think it's the only. Yeah, I agree with Jacob. I think it's the only decision Loki could make in that position, because they think Loki's done all this stuff.
Right.
They're gonna erase him pretty much ASAP. He's got to go and chase her to redeem himself, so he can also then go back and maybe overthrow the Timekeepers if he wants to.
Correct. Yeah, he's still playing. Loki is still playing for Loki, and you're exactly right. He had to follow her, because if he stays there and all the other things happen, he's going to be the one to take the heat for it. Yep. So he might as well go see if he can solve this, redeem himself, because that's what Mobius teases to him a couple of different times, an audience with the Timekeepers. He's kind of dangling that in front of him.
That's a classic detective thing, too, where someone has to go out and clear their name and bring in the real person who did the wrong, that kind of thing. So,
and there's some weird stuff and I'm going to jump to the end of the episode, but also something that I found interesting that Mobius said sort of in his conversation with Renslayer, is that he has never had personally an audience with the Timekeepers, but then C20 later on in her mumbling says that she told,
where the Timekeepers were.
Well, I found that interesting that somebody that low level would know where the Timekeepers are.
They may know where the Timekeepers are. I'm fine with an explanation of they know where they are, but they've never been able to see them, and they're not allowed to see them, if that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the wizard behind the curtain type of thing, I guess, in that sense.
And the wizard is saying no.
The whole conceit of the Timekeepers, I think, is there's going to be a swerve there. I don't know that these characters really exist in the way that we think they do.
They do exist in the comics.
Sure.
I think if you continue to fake out comic characters in the MCU through several properties, you may start to get people a little mad. But
fool me, you can't get fooled again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they better be a real thing,
Jacob.
not some Mandarin
I
stuff.
hope they're real. But if there's maybe like they're real, but they're being maybe manipulated by someone else or something, I'd also be okay with that.
I think the whole problem, and offline in conversations that I've had or Rhett has chimed in on, there's a lot of problems with the existence of these characters, these timekeepers, and this whole concept of a sacred timeline. I think it breaks some of the stuff that has happened in the MCU. And Rhett can chime in if he wants to in the chat. I don't know how much he's actually listening, but some of it can be frustrating. With
I think
go
some
ahead.
of their I think some of their explanations are not right. I think they're not real. First off, I think some of the things they've said to Loki have not been 100% true. I also don't think sacred timeline is necessary. Like, I think that there probably are still other timelines, but they don't want these other timelines to intersect. But
Okay.
again, they're not being super clear on that,
Right.
I mean, they showed a bunch of different Lokis. Those bunch of different Lokis can exist without there being some sort of diversion.
Mm-hmm.
The blue Loki is clearly, I guess, an ice, whatever those things are from Thor.
Frost giant, or
Frost giants,
yeah,
Jotunheim, whatever.
Yeah. Massive Loki.
So
okay, here we go. This is what I was hoping he would do, because I think this is all it's certainly a valid opinion to have. It's almost exactly. We don't know for sure, but in the first 2 episodes, basically he's saying if it's all misdirection, then fine, but as it is, I don't care for it, and that's fair, because I think that I think Waldron himself in tweets has alluded to, well, crap, I guess I need to fix some of this stuff that I've done with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But
I think that's the thing that I take away from it. And I'm not a comic book reader, so I'm not familiar with the deeper aspects of this. But looking at it from the things that I am getting, watching the show, knowing what I know about the movies, this, as much as anything, has the potential to be the thing that sets up the next phase of the MCU period, because we are going to get the timeline exploding in a few minutes when we talk about the end and they set off all the bombs, drop them in all the different places, and you've got that monitor where it's just spreading out, because we had that set up in Endgame when Bruce goes and talks to the Ancient One and she demonstrates, here's the timeline, and if it very
the clipping of the branch.
The clipping of the branch, that whole thing. And we know we're headed towards Multiverse of Madness. We're headed towards Spider-Man Far From Home, which has the potential to have, multiple Spider-Mans, multiverse things. Like, there's a
Quantumania.
The stuff that's coming down the pipe. Yeah. And so, as much as anything, I think this has the potential to be one of the key vehicles that transition us into the next phase of the MCU. The other part of that being, we've gotten a trailer for the Eternals a few weeks back, and the Eternals, that trailer didn't really tell us anything.
No, it's very,
but it has, again, timekeepers, Eternals to me are on the same level. Like, what are they? What's their deal? Are they the big overall, somebody said in the chat, the Infinity Stones, some people put them on their desk, and so Loki asked the question, is this the ultimate power? Is it not the Infinity Stones? Is it time itself? Is it like, I think it's confusing and muddled right now. Yeah. But Marvel does a lot of things where they're going to screw with you a little bit. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, this is where these things line up. 1, 2, 3 movies down the line, and things start to fall into place. So to me, it's not out of character for MCU, Marvel, our side of it.
I'm thinking,
but,
and I guess,
but also I want to know the answer, so I'm stuck in the middle.
I'm thinking, and I guess I'm hoping that a lot of this isn't as messy towards the end, and I really have a lot of respect for Waldron. I mean, he wrote an episode for Rick and Morty, but he was on the writing team for that show for a while.
Sure.
And so he knows he knows a lot about time travel and interdimensional travel and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where he takes it. But yeah, we're not close to getting all the answers right now. We're about to be mid-season this Wednesday. And at that point, we still won't know half of the stuff that's going to happen. So I know that just a heads up, Tom Hiddleston said that the end of episode 4 and the beginning of episode 5 were his favorite moment. It was his favorite moment in the series. So
okay,
yeah, wow, okay,
that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Maybe in the lore storytelling line, which is kind of where I feel like we are right now, a couple of things that stood out to me, and I wrote this down. In episode 1, when the judge, Ravonna Rensselaer, when she's talking to him, she says to him in that first episode, "This is not your story."
Right.
And then in episode 2, the variant, when they're having their back and forth at the end, she says, "This is not about you." So we're getting some, again, intentional little seed plantings of, of course, this is the Loki named show, and our anti-hero is Loki that we're rooting for, we're siding with, but he's getting specific moments along the way that's going, yeah, this really isn't about you, which to me is, again, that indication of we're planting bigger seeds for next phase of MCU, multiverse, whatever is coming next. And to me, those things just kind of tied along in with what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could go ahead and say that the character that we see towards the end of the episode certainly has a very similar character design to Enchantress.
Sylvie. Yeah, whatever. However you say it. Right.
But it's basically Enchantress, which... And it's not the DC Enchantress, obviously.
Well, I think she's the second Enchantress in the Marvel comics too.
Okay.
But yeah, she has a very similar look. She's got the blonde hair.
She's got the little crown with the horns.
Broken Horn is a Lady Loki thing and an Icol thing. But as we know in the MCU, they have in the past combined characters.
Right.
Whiplash is a combination of Ivan Vanko and Whiplash. Those are two different characters in the comics. So they're not afraid to do that kind of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a variant of Loki.
Right.
But she just has a little bit different powers, and she's more like the Sylvie Enchantress character in the comics.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're exactly right with the combination aspect of it, because I did a little bit of looking up before this after I watched it a second time. And I think it's Zavi there's a toy leak that came out where you can buy a Loki headgear set of horns, and you can buy the Sylvie / Enchantress set, and it has the one horn and the broken horn. And so it kind of has it listed as both. And it it kind of gives that same indication of like they've taken Lady Loki and Enchantress and combined these two things, because there was I think it's the Castilian Spanish translation of this episode or this description has her listed as Sylvie.
Yes.
And so like that name is plugged in along the line somewhere, but then you do get the one horn and the broken horn. So it's like, again, the mesh of the two.
I don't know why that's on the Disney Plus stream. Anyone could go look at that. The Castilian, the Spain, España.
Yeah, I mean we're just all about the romance languages on this show here
for sure.
Every other language has her listed as the variant. Even in English, she's the variant. But for some reason in Spain they called her Sylvie. Which I don't know if they got in trouble for that or what, but
or somebody didn't catch it. I mean, it could be that type of thing.
I just thought that was funny.
And if you haven't figured it out, I mean, this is certainly a spoiler-filled show. And this casting was announced at some point, so it's not like we're spoiling.
Yes, it was a thing that was out for a while. And I think when that casting leak came out, I think it was said she's going to be Lady Loki, and that was that kind of raised everybody's flag of like, what does that mean? People like me that don't know Lady Loki.
Richard E. Grant was also.
A cast leak.
Supposed to be a Loki is the rumors.
Yeah, I mean, and what's cool if you watch the end credit, the animated one, there's 4 empty spots throughout that end credit for different names. So there's 4 actors that they haven't added into the series yet. Richard E. Grant is obviously going to be one, and then there's 3 other blank spots because they saved.
I'm sorry, I think you mean Allegiant General Pride.
Yeah, Allegiant General Pride. My bad. But because they have Owen Wilson at the very end because it says with Owen Wilson. Well, before that, there's like a blank, and then there's some other blanks throughout those end credits for more names. So I think we're getting more names than we think, because the only one that I knew of that was left was Richard E. Grant. So there's some other people they don't want you to know about that are in this series.
Well, also in the end credits, and I looked this up today, there's a part where, of course, they're panning through, kind of like the conspiracy wall and the typewriters and all these different things. And there's a shot of a locker that has a poster in it. And in episode 1, the poster says TVA and it says always watching is the catchphrase. And in episode 2, that poster changes. And so the poster in episode 2 says less meetings, more productivity. So something's going on with these posters, and it could just be a little wink and a nod. But that was another thing that showed up as I was kind of doing some research, getting ready for tonight, where they're, in credits and Marvel stuff always have little teases, little bits, whether it's an actual after scene or like you're saying, blank spaces or poster changes or, it kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones and those opening credits where depending on what that episode was focused on, those maps would change and focus differently in the intro part.
Oh, let's talk about that. You mentioned Game of Thrones, and music was a big part of that series, obviously. I hate the fact that I forgot to look up her name, but the person doing the composing for this show is awesome. It is just such a big part of it.
I don't know who it is, but they're definitely using a theremin in some of the songs.
Yes, or a synthesized version of a theremin. I mean,
and it fits so well with the weirdness of the show.
The
score does.
Sounds great. One of the other Easter eggs that may or may not end up panning out is the Roxmart or whatever, which is Roxcart, sorry, which is Roxxon Corporation. It's which is a huge deal in the comics, but has yet to have been a very big deal that we know of in the MCU. There's one scene in, I think, either Iron Man 2 or 3 where they show a billboard with Roxxon on there, but it was kind of a big deal in a lot of the series that are not apparently MCU driven, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, Hellstrom. Roxxon Corporation was all over the place. I think at some point they're gonna have to include it in the MCU because it's a major thread throughout a lot of actual Marvel comics that this clandestine company, had a lot to do with the, Hydra and some of those organizations like that. So we'll get it eventually, I think.
So the timelines, you think they're going to redline next week? Because it's interesting to see. Did you see all the places Lady Loki sent the bombs to?
No, I didn't pay attention.
She sent it to Vormir, which that'll be interesting.
Whoa.
She sent it to Titan.
Okay.
She sent it to Ego.
Okay.
Yes. She sent it to Jotunheim and Asgard, which, these are all really interesting places to send it to. She sent it to the Nova Corps world, Xandar. And I think the Kree home world as well, or something like that.
So okay, well,
and
that's confusing.
Some cities in the U.S. as well.
Dude, okay, but so what we don't know is what time period she's sending those to at those different places.
I guess not. I didn't check that hard, but I'm gonna guess not.
That's interesting. That kind of blows my mind a little bit. So,
what happens when you send one of those things to a timeline that's already fine? How much does it mess with that timeline?
Right. So it's got like you said, there's got to be a red line event at this point. They can't handle that. They can't handle that much. So things are about to get really messy for the TVA, I think.
Yeah, and we get the little glimpse of that, the two techs that are sitting at the desk, and you all of a sudden you see that thing, and it just starts spreading out in all the different branches, and they're losing their minds and freaking out.
They have no idea what to do because they really can't do anything.
Right.
It was a surprise attack.
Yeah. It's crazy. I love the series. But at the same time, I totally respect, like with Rhett having issues with it because he thinks it minimizes some of the things that have happened in the MCU. Now, again, we're only 2 episodes in, and maybe they're going to resolve that in some way where it doesn't feel as much that they've minimized events that happened in the first 10 years of the MCU.
Well, it does something for me, and I actually, if I can plug for you, last week's episode of the Deucecast that I had the privilege of being on, and we talked about Back to the Future, and when you get to Back to the Future 2, and when Marty ends up back in 1955 again, and he's seeing what he saw the first time from a different perspective, when he's on the catwalk over the stage, you've got all that different stuff. This show is doing some of that same stuff that we also got in Endgame. Yeah. Where, Loki picks up the cube in that scene we get in Endgame, poof, disappears, and now we're in a different thing. In Endgame, you have Cap in the elevator fighting himself. You have Tony, other Tony, like the whole, different. It's creating these multiple lines. And what I think it does for us on an entertainment level, whether we can try and figure out the science and the factuality of how it really works, is it creates more legs and it creates more avenues for them to explore. So what if we do this? And again, they've set it up already with multiple timelines and multiple branches and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, I'm living kind of in that in between of, yes, I want to know what does it mean and how does it work? But because I love this franchise and these properties, I'm also excited the fact that, like, okay, this gives us a way to see it from another angle, a certain point of view, a different point of view, if you will.
And I guess at some point there is an element where you do have to suspend disbelief, and maybe they do break their world a little bit. Maybe they do. But if they can explain why they felt like they had to break their world a little bit, maybe it ends up being okay in the end. I mean, who knows? And that's the thing, a lot of thing with fiction. I mean, never break your own world. I mean, it's something you never want to do, obviously. So I can't imagine that Kevin Feige would totally allow that to happen anyways. Sure. I don't think so, but
all these showrunners have guidelines on what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
I mean, he gives a lot more control than some people think, according to the guys who get to work for him, but he definitely gives guidelines on what.
Yeah. There's still a master plan. There's still a big picture. We're trying to get from here to here. What we do in between and how we get there is a little bit up for grabs, and let's get weird with it for a little bit if we want to, because we've already gotten WandaVision, which was weird, which was weird, but great. And, honestly, I think WandaVision culminates in that part at the very end when she's in the cabin with the book, with, all that kind of stuff. That's ultimately where we're at, because that's the new, again, pivot towards the next era of the MCU that's going to get a little more out there and a little more mystical, spacey, whatever.
Her being a Nexus being searching for her kids.
Interesting, right?
I think probably through the multiverse. That's my guess, since she's involved in the multiverse of madness.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, Roth had mentioned that he was gonna, and I appreciate he put an interview in the Deucecast Discord. So this is a plug for the Deucecast Discord. He put an interview in there that basically talks about some of the Infinity Stone stuff that Waldron did. And so I look forward to reading that. But so this is good to know that Feige had to approve it. I mean, Feige's there. You had to approve it. It's good stuff. I mean, well, we've gone an hour. Is there anything major that we have missed?
I don't know if it's major, but I have 2 points that I want to throw out there. One of them, and I guess this falls in the Easter egg category.
Yeah.
When they're doing the research in the library and they're trying to figure out what's going on, the music in the background of that scene is the Bach Orchestral No. 3 Suite, which is also the scene, or is used in Seven when Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt are doing the research in the library.
Oh, wow.
I read that online today, and I was just like, I love that. Like,
is awesome.
Library research. This is the music you get.
That is awesome.
And then the only thing, and this is a very selfish thing, I want to see the outtakes of the salad Ragnarok explanation scene. Because when he's dumping the salt and dumping the pepper, and then he gets the juice box from Casey at the next table, like, you could tell there were a couple of moments when you could tell Hiddleston was about to break. And I want to see those outtakes and scenes from that.
Hopefully we'll get that. What are they calling it? Where they talk about the season? At the end
like the
the assembled.
Assembled,
the assembled episodes. Yeah, I want that in the assembled is the outtakes from the salad explanation scene.
Yeah. Casey is the character that gets crapped on throughout the series. I mean, that's basically what this guy has been put in place for. So, and I love that. I mean, that's great. Ryfin, did you have anything else?
Not really anything major. I did notice during the episode they had categories for their disasters. So, we would talk about a category 5 hurricane or something.
Okay.
It listed the disaster as a category 10 hurricane or category 10 disaster in Haven Hill, Alabama. Whereas Ragnarok in the paper was listed as a 7, a category 7.
Wow. Well, and that's interesting. One person that I read a little bit about was speculating that they're showing that environmentally, the further we go into the future, obviously the more natural disasters are occurring. And so that's just a comment on the destabilization of the environment as we get further in. Because I think they said 2048, like there's a lot of, and Mobius even joked, oh yeah, there's millions of natural disasters throughout history. But yeah, it just seems like they're wanting the viewer to understand, things get volatile in the future. The future is not bright, which, that's accurate probably in real life too. So when it comes to that type of stuff, that's somewhat biblical, man. But I'm loving the series so far with trepidation. I want them to, explain this stuff in a way that doesn't break anything that happened prior, because I'm not a huge fan of when that occurs. So I'm with Rhett in that sense that I don't want them to break anything that they've already established as far as their world building is concerned. And if they do explain it, and okay, if it is what it is, explain it. And Waldron and his writing team are certainly talented enough to pull that off. I mean, the Rick and Morty stuff that guy has been involved in, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in that show.
He brought a Rick and Morty guy with him as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a big writing team. So
yeah, exactly. Well, I think we are at a point where we will wrap it up. One note that I think we need to mention is that we're going to have to do this on Saturday of this week. So those that sometimes wait to watch the series, if you're interested in following up with us live, at least, make sure that you've watched, both Loki episode 3, obviously, and Bad Batch episode 9, because we're going to do this on Saturday night, 9:00. Nick is promised he's going to be back, so now that means he has to be, since I've said totally that live. Yeah. So, and Ryfin and myself, of course, will be back. Ryfin, where can the people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at SUPASH3, on Letterboxd at GRyfin, and of course on the Deucecast Discord. So
yeah, awesome.
As GRyfin3, I guess. So.
And the Deucecast Discord has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate those that have joined in and participating in that. It's been really fun. Nick, please plug all your stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and to start off, talking about the Deucecast Discord, I am also on the Deucecast Discord as Hank Spaceman, not to throw anybody off.
That's right.
I have a list on my phone in the Apple Notes section of funny nicknames, secret names, code names. Yeah. They've usually popped up from different TV shows. And so I love 30 Rock. It's my favorite sitcom of all time. And so Dr. Spaceman is one of my favorite little bits. And at some point along the line for something, I decided Hank Spaceman was going to be a thing. So I am on the Deucecast Discord as Hank Spaceman. Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The easiest place is for the show at Will's Pod, which is Podcast of the Wills, which is live every Sunday night.
Look at this. New listener tonight.
Oh, there we go. I'm excited for you to do that. And this coming Sunday, My guest is a gentleman named Brian Barry. Brian is one of the hosts of the podcast Pink Milk, a Star Wars podcast, which is he and his husband. His husband has no real interest in Star Wars, but he agreed to be a part of that. So it's kind of like me and my wife and MCU. Which is so sad. No, but it's a great podcast. And with it being Pride Month and having the opportunity to talk to Brian, they've had some big stuff going on with their show. And so I'm excited to have Brian on to talk to him. Last week, like we said, we had the guys from Skywalking Through the League. That was a lot of fun. They have a podcast that is part Star Wars, part sports. So if you're into either one of those things, check those guys out. And then we have Heroes of the MomCU, which is our podcast with me and my daughters and my wife watching the MCU movies chronologically. Up next is The Hulk with Edward Norton. I'm worried.
How did you come upon your copy of The Hulk there, Nick?
Well, a good friend of mine, maybe named Michael, shared a screen pass that I haven't used yet, and I may have to get him to renew by the time we actually get to watch the movie, because they're only good for 7 days.
Just let me know.
That's right. I will let you know. So I'm a little bit concerned because I feel like that movie could be a little bit of a slog. On the other side of that, it's fairly emotional because you do have Edward Norton and you have Betty and that whole relationship. And also my wife loves Ed Norton. And when we first met and got married, she thought that I kind of reminded her of Ed Norton. So there may be an emotional contact that gets us through that movie, because the challenge right now is I know what my wife likes in movies, and it's things that we're going to get in the relationships between Tony Stark and Peter Parker. And, as the emotional relationships develop, but right now we're still building the universe and introducing all the different characters. So I have to get her through that to get her to the point where we get to like Civil War and Steve gets to reunite with Peggy, or, all those different things. So we've got to get through the Hulk next, but Heroes of the MomCU, it's available in most of the podcast places. We'd love for you to check it out. They're short episodes, which makes it easy to consume. And it's just fun. It's silly. And, otherwise, I'm on the internet somewhere. You can find me. And if not, you can find me here with you guys Saturday night, which I'm super thankful to be able to do.
Awesome. And we definitely appreciate that. And please look for me on Twitter. I'm at the Michael Nip or at the Deucecast. And I'm not sure exactly how Discord works from an invite standpoint. So if you would like an invite to our Discord, please DM me either at the Michael Nip or at the Deucecast, and I can send you an invite. I think you can look up the server. It's the Deucecast Movie Club.
I think you'd have to put the link out there to join it.
Yeah, so I don't know how to do that. I don't know all that. So DM me if you're not already on there and you'd like to join our Discord. I like keeping it kind of small. It feels like, a little club that we're just talking about movies. We got different channels in there. I mean, Dr. Earl has his own pretentious corner in there. So those of you that listen to
the Finer Things Club.
The Finer Things Club. Yeah, those of you that listen to the Deucecast movie show know all about Dr. Earl's pretentious corner. So we've got a fun, really long episode dropping on Wednesday for the Deucecast movie show. It's our reflections. We haven't done one since like the beginning of May. So there are a lot of movies that are out there that we talk about.
Another 2-hour reflections.
It is another 2-hour reflections. I'll be honest, it is definitely.
The episode's going to start out with Dave. All right, it's not going to be 2 hours this time.
Yeah, exactly. It is definitely another 2-hour reflections. So, and I don't talk about near as many. Like, I think I had seen over 50 movies since the last time we did a reflections. And we're kind of using these to break up the decades. Nick was 1985 to 1989 for our summer movie series. Yep. So we're breaking up the 80s and the 90s with the reflections. And then we've got a really fun guest coming on next week to do 1990 to 1994 for our summer movies. So it's been a really fun series to do, and it's getting us through the summer, which is what we were trying to do. So I really appreciate everybody hanging out in the live chat. It makes this fun for us too, to see you guys hanging out in the live chat and participating. If you happen to catch this on delay, please feel free to comment on the YouTube comment section, and I'll do my best to reply as I can. But the big thing on YouTube, obviously, is to subscribe. And in order to get us more subscribers, please share this with your friends and click that notification button. So Roth was concerned about not having the ability to remember that we're going to be doing this on Saturday. Well, guess what? YouTube has the notification bell. So yeah, go ahead and click on that and you'll get notified when we go live. But
and you'll drop it in the Discord and you'll put it on
yeah,
Twitter.
oh yeah. I'll put it in the Discord. I'll put it in all the normal places. We did pick up 3 subscribers since last time we did this.
Ooh.
So we're up to 44 now. So there.
Look at that.
We're moving up in the world. So, we're trying to get to 100 at least.
Personalized domain, baby.
We need to get that personalized YouTube domain. That's the goal. It's all about little goals with YouTube. So, we've only been doing this part of the Deucecast for, I guess, a little over a year now, though. A little bit embarrassing that we're not over 100 yet, but
this will be about a year because you guys started with Longmire in June last year. So yeah,
Yellowstone.
Sorry,
Yellowstone. hey, I like Longmire also, but Yellowstone, yeah.
Sorry, you guys confused
and Yellowstone's about to start back up.
Yeah, usually they start the season on Father's Day. They're not doing that. The rumor is that Paramount wanted to wait until the end of the Olympics this year, so it'll be August for season 4 is what I'm guessing. And Roth and myself and Dr. Earl are going to be doing Yellowstone season 4. So if you don't have Paramount Network, Roth, you need to get on that. You need to figure out a way to get the Paramount Network, buddy. Not Paramount Plus, but the Paramount, just the cable network. Says if you're going to be doing that show with us, you need to. So again, I really appreciate everybody hanging out, and we will be back on Saturday to talk about the next episode of both The Bad Batch and Yellowstone. Everybody have a wonderful evening.